happening, lads and lassies, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be doing a little debate, a little conversation of Tasm 2, as you can tell by this amazing background. So, as you can see, after a little while, the returning guest, All Valley.
What's up?
So me and All Valley got into an interesting topic at one point during a conversation during one of the last videos we did, and we brought up Tasm 2. And we kind of figured out we have very conflicting views on the movie. And I thought, well, let's see let's see the perspective of someone who actually liked Tasm 2 more than hated it like the rest of us did. So, without further ado, I'll let All Valley go first because, well, most people will already know my opinion. It's your opinion that I'm pretty sure everyone's looking forward to.
So I understand why people don't like this movie. There are things in this movie where I feel like are stupid and I don't like. So to get like the stuff I don't like out of the way, I don't like Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Willem Dafoe. No one will ever top Willem Dafoe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Green Goblin was just, I don't know, I just didn't like him. Even as Harry, he was all right, I would say. Nothing against the actor or anything. Speaking of actors and writers on strike, so Hollywood, support your actors and writers because without them, this movie wouldn't have possible, even if it's good or bad, still. But anyways, like Green Goblin was all right, like it's just like, And the other thing was, there was a point in the movie where Peter was in the train sequence and he sees a video of his dad, and it's saying like, oh, only Peter can be Spider-Man, and I don't like that either. I think that is very dumb. That is very stupid because that kind of neglects Stan Lee's view. Because I think Stan Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a point where Stan Lee said anyone can be in the mask. It doesn't matter who you are; it's anyone that can be in the mask, and that kind of neglects like Miles in a way. If they were to put Miles in the universe and stuff like that, so that's another thing where I don't really like in the movie. I thought that was...
In the defense of that movie, I'm pretty sure Miles didn't exist yet because Miles didn't get created until a bit later on in this movie, I'm pretty sure.
But if he were, I just feel like that's like a stupid reason. I'm like, oh, only Peter can be Spider-Man. No one else can be. I just don't like that.
Yeah, fair it is. That's fair. So tell me your overall likes of it, because I'm
All right,
pretty sure
so
that's
now
what
the
everybody
likes.
else is going to be like. Oh, right. Like, let's see what this guy's got to say.
I like the action. I think this is one of the best Spider-Man action sequences besides like obviously, but like besides like Home, like No Way Home, Far From Home, like the first Spider-Man movie. Like the action's like really good in this movie. I enjoy Peter and I was gonna say Peter and MJ, Peter and Gwen. I like Peter and Gwen a lot in this movie. I think Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone have the best chemistry. I think this movie does a great job. I guess like kind of expanding the relationship. I enjoyed it in my opinion. I thought it was cool, even though it started getting a little tedious. Where it was like we saying like, "Oh, I'm like doing this to protect you. Oh, I'm going to London. Oh, I'm not going." Like it's like I got a little tedious, but it didn't bother me. I still really enjoyed it. It's just because I think their chemistry is just carried a lot in this movie. That's probably one of the things I really enjoyed about it. Obviously, the suit looks so freaking sick. It looks so awesome. So I love that as well. And I didn't mind Electro as many other people didn't. I didn't mind him. It was a little goofy how they did like the little he's like a nerd, like an actual like nerdy nerd. It was like the gap teeth and like the glasses and like the weird hairstyle. Like that didn't bother me in a way. Like other people did. I thought Electro was pretty cool. Obviously, he was cooler in No Way Home, but there are other with the like here. Like I liked Electro. He was a good villain. I think he was and it helped Peter develop like I don't know how to describe the word, but it was like it had Peter help him find like uses like his science brain you see in the movie where he's like making the electrical webs and all that stuff. So it's showing like Peter that helped Peter show like, his smart side, which the first Tasm didn't really do that much, but this one it showed like how smart Peter is with like the technology and all that stuff. Even though the first Tasm did show a little bit with him like building the webs and all that, this one showed a little bit more when he was like watching the video and learning how to build the webs and like doing all the sciencey stuff. And I don't know, I thought that was really cool to see. And
Cool.
and I'm trying to think of like another cool thing I liked in the movie. I like Andrew Garfield, in my opinion. He's like I like even before No Way Home. I really liked Andrew. I remember as a kid when this movie came out and I freaking adored this. I was like, 8, 9 years old when this movie was out, and I
Mhm.
freaking loved it, and it was so cool to see like a Spider-Man movie, and I just loved it.
Mm.
That's just the main point. It's like a guilty pleasure movie, I guess you can call it in a way.
Yeah.
But I really liked that part, and I was like the way they did Gwen's death
Mm.
hit home. Not hit home, but like because thank God no one died, but in my family that I know of. But like like it hit in the heartstrings. That's a better way of
Mhm.
saying it. It hit in the heartstrings, and I just genuinely really enjoyed it. And those are like the overall consensus and the action sequences. I think I mentioned that before, but yeah, that is just like the cool part in the movie that I really loved, and I think it was really cool seeing all this cool like Spider-Man action, like especially like the beginning when he was like
Mhm.
stopping like the Rhino before he became the Rhino, like the flipping, the cheesy like little like one-liners. He's like, "Hello, Mr. Criminal. You can call me Webhead. You can call me Amazing. Just don't call me late for dinner. Get it?" And like all that stuff is just really like it. I really enjoyed that, and that ending scene. I think the ending scene with the kid
Mm.
is something that like it's just a awesome sequence, and with Gwen's speech in the background at the graduation,
Mhm.
I think it really showed the I guess what's the word? The true like meaning.
Mhm.
Like although like we may lose sometimes, never back down. It was basically I guess the main point of the speech.
Mhm.
But yeah, and just like never give up, and I really love that. So overall, I just really enjoyed the consensus of the movie. Besides like two problems I had it
Mhm.
with it, I just really really enjoyed it overall.
Right. So taking into account what you have said and things like that. See, the reason for like me and like trust me, one of our good friends over um Strike First Media also have a very strong opinion of these movies. And also RJ is because fundamentally they got so much of the lore wrong to the point where even though yeah, you can say it had great action pieces, but I'm sorry, I can't take Spider-Man seriously if he's beating the shit of a blue guy to dubstep. Like, I'm
I get
sorry,
it. Yeah, I get
I
it. I get
just
it.
can't take that seriously.
I
Even
get
in
it.
like the most serious tense moments, it's like a Skrillex dubstep track in the background, just being like, and you're like, what the fuck? What's going on? Um,
I get it. Yeah, I understand
and then
it.
on top of that, it's like the Gwen story was obviously good, but I don't think it as good as it was in the first one for me specifically speaking. Like, yeah, one of the things that I can always give this movie is that they got the death of Gwen Stacy like so comic book accurate. Other than the fact that we had a Green Goblin that looked like he had a fried testicle on his head. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna be honest. You know, also the thing else is like fundamentally like the whole like subplot of Peter's parents made no sense to me in the
That
like
was another thing I
I
didn't think
know
as well. I can agree with
it's
you on that
based
one.
on more of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic run, but even though they were successful comics, it wasn't because of his parents being a part of the story. It was because the story overall was good. Most people just didn't care for the parents part, and so I felt like that stuff was kind of just forced in there, and it was kind of annoying to keep being like, oh why am I Spider-Man? And obviously the biggest thing is obviously it's like, oh, you're the only one that can be Peter, like be Spider-Man. It's like that makes no sense because like legitimately if he would have went on for longer, and obviously when Miles as the character got released, if he was before this, I can't exactly remember, but I know it was around about this time or just after is when Miles started showing up for the first time. What like then that kind of just puts that subplot to the side. So if they were to ever make the Amazing Spider-Man 3 like they were going to, then it'd be pointless of having that scene in in the movie. Then also on top of that, like I do like Andrew as a Spider-Man. I'll always hands down say that, but I'm sorry, he's not a geek. He's not the geeky nerdy guy that is sitting there, like without even the first movie, you see him raising up Gwen like it's nothing. That's not Peter. Peter cannot riz. Girls seem to attract, like gravitate towards him, but they don't. He doesn't gravitate them to him like he does in these movies. Also, I just think when it comes to all of this stuff, like I also didn't like the fact that for some strange reason, like Peter couldn't make up his mind if he wanted to be with Gwen or not because he had to promise like her like dying dad and things. Like I get what they were doing, but at the same time like it just kind of was a plot that wasn't necessarily needed. And then when they brought in Goblin itself as well, it's like
Yeah.
it was so left field. Like there was no hints to Harry or anything beforehand. and it's just like, oh, this is my friend Harry. It's like, you know, you had Norman, but obviously, like, Norman had that weird disease and like passed away, and obviously that's their whole reasoning for him coming back. But like, even at that, you know, the whole like Spider-Man needs to give his DNA to his dad to secure him. That makes no sense because it's radioactive. If anything, it would probably just unalive his dad, if anything. So I never understood that point either. Obviously, you get the lovely scene that we like to play over on the Kings. The I hate you, Spider-Man, and it's
You're
like,
fraud, Spider-Man.
see, to me, it feels more like his character was like a weird amalgamation of like J. Jonah Jameson and like a weird version of Harry, because Harry would have never said anything like that or within that style. Like, yeah, he has his problems with Peter, but the reason why I don't exactly like that version of Harry as well is because when it comes to the fundamentals of Harry and Peter's relationship, the reason why Harry gets annoyed at Peter and most of continuities is because Peter's the smarter guy and the smartest guy in his like class, right? His dad looks at Peter as the son he wanted in Harry, and Harry gets jealous of that, and that's what causes the rift between them. And then, be it in other continuities, it's depending, it's similar or it's similar with a girl attached onto it as well. And so that what makes him the way that he is. And that makes sense why he would end up turning on his friend. Where obviously this Harry, like, is good friends with Peter, and you know, they're talking by like the bridge and skipping stones. I'm sorry, it's Spider-Man maybe. What we doing at a bridge skipping stones for? Like, it feels more like a old school 90s like Stand By Me type movie. I know that might be a bit later on, like later, like when it comes to years, but it's like that sort of thing. And I get what they were trying to go for. They were trying to like explain and show that brotherly love, but it didn't. And so for me, that's why it's ultimately flawed as well. When it comes to Electro, I'm sorry, like I can't take someone seriously who looks like a Smurf. Like legitimately, he's just Smurf. He's just Grandpa Smurf with a few lightning bolts on his face. Like, don't get me wrong, I did see what they done with the character, right? Where they made him a geeky sort of person. I also just don't like the way he became like Electro either. It made no actual sense. Like,
Like with the gap
he,
teeth coming in, yeah.
yeah, like
I can get it, yeah.
every continuity of this character does have a variation of backstory, and there is a backstory like this in one of the animated shows. But for me, the ultimate thing is like it fixed his tooth. He apparently was just cool. He was light blue, and it made no sense. Also, on top of this, like I'll probably point this out for my main man, it's Danny, because he's the one that tends to have more of an issue of this than I do. They also race swapped them, and obviously for some people that annoyed them. And I'm not one of those people. I'm just saying that a lot of people do find getting people race swapped is annoying because originally Electro is a white guy, and you know some people get annoyed at that. So that also could be a contributing factor. I'm not gonna lie about that. Some people don't care, like it's like for myself and probably like people like
Yeah,
RJ and Cody and things. We don't care. Like
I
I know
don't.
that for a fact. We like this take. The only reason why we say I like this take now is because we got No Way Home. Without No Way Home, that I would arguably say that that version of Electro is the worst villain we've got. Because yeah, you can argue that he is a good villain within this story, but just because you can argue the fact that he's the good villain in this story doesn't necessarily mean he's an overall good villain. Because the amount of times, how many times have we seen movies and things where they have a villain and they're like a grey villain? So this is what they done with Electro in this. They made him more of a grey villain. Like you saw that he was trying to help Spider-Man before he got like turned into Electro. He was trying to be the best man he could, and then just one happy accident, and all of a sudden, you know, that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, I understand the philosophy of that and things, but how many times are we going to see that in movies now? Like, and at this point, this is when it was starting to get annoying, where it was like, oh, here we go again. This is why like the reason why I always have an issue with these sort of things is because it tries to justify why someone's turned bad. You don't have to justify it. If they're bad, they're bad. And like that's what I'm saying. It's like for me as well, like Electro was cool and some of the action scenes were alright, but most of the movie I can remember of is the more boring stuff because the more interesting stuff wasn't that interesting. Like and it wasn't long enough. It was like the Gwen stuff, Harry, then obviously Electro. Like all it is like the main bullet points where For example, an up-to-date one that obviously I know you have also seen is Blue Beetle. Like for me, the villains in that were a lot better than than Electro in this. And that's not me being a douche. That's not me trying to be condescending. It's just legitimately when it comes down to the fundamentals. When it comes to this character, they try to justify it. Where in the Blue Beetle, if people don't want spoilers, you can click off the now because I did do a spoiler thing. As you know, at the end of the thing, they don't try to justify what the other guy was doing. They showed you that he was in the wrong for becoming what he was. And that's what makes it different from this take. And that's what made it feel so refreshing to someone like me. Because the amount of times I see this version of a character in a movie as well, especially when it comes to superhero movies, like, oh, I was the geeky nerdy kid, everybody hates me, oh no, what's going on? And it's like that's cool, but how many times can we really repeat that? And so it becomes a formulaic movie, but with layers of Spider-Man. Like I will always give you the benefit of the doubt. When it comes to being Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield was one of the best ones when it came to the quips and things. But when it comes to Peter Parker, on the other hand, I'm sorry, he was sitting doing kickflips. Like I can never let that fly. Like Peter's not a skater kid, and trust me, I should know. I used to be a skater kid back in the day, and I loved all that sort of stuff. And I highly doubt a photographer. He would be the photographer for the skate kids, but he wouldn't be the one skating. So that's what I have fundamentally wrong. It's just because they've done so much dirty by the characters. Even like Green Goblin and Harry is like they've removed it so far from what we know as the lore that yeah, I understand it's a variation or a good like their own take. But as I've pointed out on many other occasions, just because it's your variation or your take does not make it a good one. Because for me, obviously, I have some controversial opinions when it comes to like the Dark Knight trilogy and like stuff like that, and I will always take that on the chin. But I know people are going to hate on me for that, and I know people are going to dislike me for that. So that's why I also respect you for doing this as well, because you know that a lot of people don't find this movie really good, and it's good to hear your take. And some of them were quite interesting and quite cool to hear, but at the same time, unfortunately, my mind's not changed on the movie. But now at least I know why you like it, and I can give you that. And obviously now other people can understand because obviously I've never like most people have never met a person that likes this movie a lot. Like you're lucky if I've met like one, and that's probably you. So yeah.
There's one more thing I want to add that I kind of forgot that you mentioned was when the parents' whole thing happened. There's one thing I actually did like, and it
Mm.
was the Aunt May and Peter scene after that. Because
Ah,
I do love that scene. And I think that's one of the best Peter and Aunt May scenes where she's giving the speech like, "You're my boy. Like I fed you, I cleaned you, I helped you with your homework." Like I
yeah, I get you.
that I really like that scene a lot. And I think Sally Field did amazing as Aunt May. She's my favorite Aunt May out
See,
of
for me, when it comes to the Aunt May situation, for me, she was a good Aunt May, but I think they suffer from the same sort of thing that happens in The Dark Knight for me, where like Jim and Batman like spend like 5 minutes of screen time together, and that's what happened in a lot of these movies, especially with Aunt May. She wasn't in a lot of scenes, and obviously, when you expect Aunt May to be a part of the movie a lot because she's fundamentally the character that helps Peter become the man he is, it's kind of a bit a hit or a miss for me because in the first like Tobey trilogy, Aunt May was there constantly. She was getting kidnapped. Green Goblin was like trying to like blow up her house. Doc Ock was stealing her from the bank. Like they were actually going after them. Where like in these movies, nothing really bad really happened to her, other than obviously sadly Uncle Ben passing. But you don't get to see much of her either, and so it's mostly focused on like the story points of like Peter and Hingy, and obviously you do have like the odd occasional scenes, but I just don't feel like the dynamic that we've grown to love and know was still there when it comes to the fundamental of these movies because they didn't have enough time to fundamentally build that relationship. It was kind of they just expect you to know it, which is a issue that a lot of movies are doing now, where they expect you to know the lore, but they also forget. And there's other kids now that are coming into these movies or there's like someone that may have never seen a Spider-Man movie and they or read a comic and they're going to see it because their friend or a boyfriend or a girlfriend wants them to go, and they've just expected to know the lore.
so I think that's a great point that you just made. When I was a kid when the Tasm movies came out,
Mhm.
never read a comic a day in my life before these movies. Never read a comic. I just went into it, and for me, obviously now I understand more of the character of Peter Parker.
Mhm.
But when I was a kid, when I saw these movies, to me that was Peter,
Mhm.
and that was Spider-Man. So maybe that's probably why I still like I still liked it
Yeah.
in a way. You know, like I think the first Amazing Spider-Man movie was the very first Spider-Man movie I ever saw. I
Mm.
didn't see like that was the very first one. It wasn't Toby, it wasn't Tom. Like it was the first Tasm was like the very first time I
Yeah.
ever saw Spider-Man. One of the first times I saw Spider-Man on the big screen,
Mm.
and to me that was cool. And so I was really excited for this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just my opinion. You know, I think this movie's still it's not my top 5 favorite Spider-Man movie of all time.
Mhm.
I can understand like it's like bad and bad in a way,
Mhm.
but it's just me, in my opinion. I just really enjoyed it. I just have a good time watching this movie. I just when I'm like wanting to watch like a fun,
Mm.
cool, action-packed movie with, in my opinion, I just put on Tasm 2 and I just enjoy it. I have fun with it. I just have yeah, I just have fun with it. I understand it's a bad movie,
Mm.
but I just have fun with the movie and I
Yeah,
just enjoy it.
of course, like we all have guilty pleasure movies. Like I'm partial to some Batman and Robin because of how cringy it is. It actually makes it funny. But you know, like when it comes to like the Tasms, like unlike you, I grew up watching the 1960s Spider-Man cartoon because they were doing reruns when I was growing up at like 6:30 in the morning in color. And so my first exposure was the original take of that character from the comics put onto the TV. And then from there I had like the 90s animated series. Then I had Toby's movies. Then I had the Spectacular Spider-Man. Then I also had like the Ultimate Spider-Man game, like, and I had all the like Spider-Man games coming out as well. And then obviously I got the Andrew stuff. And then obviously I was still a teenager in the first few years of Tom's. So I can see what you're saying when it comes to like growing up and stuff, but this is one of the very vital things I've always said to people is I think people don't enjoy the movie because it's a good movie. I think it's because it reminds them of a feeling they had when they first saw it. So because of that, it sort of warps your brain into trying not to see the most negatives because you're holding on to a certain nostalgia. And a lot of people don't like to admit that, but I'm one of the first people to admit that. That's why when I can go back and watch a movie that I used to love or like used to like a lot more, I'm like, oh shit, I don't like it anymore. Like I don't want to not like it. I'll go back with the same hope and thing, but I think a lot of people don't realize that that's what it is. It's not that necessarily it was a good movie. It was just you can remember the feeling. So every time you watch it, it reminds you of a time of when you were feeling a certain way. And that's what makes it a good movie for people. And I can understand that logic and it makes a lot of sense. So that's why, for me, that's a good analysis of it. Because let's be real, like everybody has a bad movie or something that they like that is bad to everybody else, but is good to them. Like, you know, or vice versa. You know, it could be good to everybody else, but to you, you're just like, you know.
Agree. I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I understand your points and why
Mhm.
your little review on why you didn't like it that much. But yeah, I
Yeah. So I think we could start wrapping this up because it's been an interesting debate. But anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this TASM 2 little video. And as always, I'm going to leave a link down to All Valley's channel. Go over there and subscribe. And whilst I'm at it, of course, give me a wee like, give me a wee subscribe. I don't like doing this, never have, never will. But, you know, YouTube and stuff. But anyway, I have been Ken and Wolf. That has been All Valley. And I shall see you guys in the next video.
thank you guys.